don't like the Sherman. It's just so, well, there's a lot I don't like about it. I know people do, but I don't, so that's my opinion. And I was just watching The World at War, and they just showed this little clip, and suddenly I realised the significance of the Sherman tank. I feel the same way about the Churchill, but there are positives as well. I know people out there will be shouting. I have no time for nutters with black and white points of view. I'm obsessed with this, therefore you should be obsessed with it too. Be like me. Oh, I'll get stuffed. I've got my own opinions, and that's that. But this little bit of footage has made me appreciate the Sherman. So let's go. Here's the shot. It's just on in the background. I just turned around and saw this. What is it about them? Well, they go. Look at that thing, or those two. I've just gone back. Look at those two. Just that place is little more than black dust. And they're ploughing through it. Yeah, they can go through the bocage of Normandy and all sorts. They might not have the most punch, they might have a lot of vulnerable spots, they're a dreadful high shape, all of those things, but those things just plough on, and they, deliver shells in the right direction. And some tanks just got too complex, and some tanks just got too fancy. The T-34 and the Churchill just actually were, I won't say unstoppable, because obviously Tigers and things could, but they just landscape and technical issues seemed to not stop them at all. These ones in the Churchill seem to be able to go on with a whole load of wheels missing. So I'm reviewing my thoughts. It's still never going to be my top tank. It's an ugly, uninspired lump in so many ways, but my goodness, they do move. And so, as a consequence, coming to you from a very large sheet of polystyrene in the workshop, I'm giving a Sherman, or the Sherman tank, another try. And I said to myself, after seeing that little bit of film, I should give the Sherman tank another try, really. And then I went to Lidl, and there were these. This and the Tiger, Airfix Tiger tank and Spitfire. And I thought, I'll try this one, because I'd just seen the Sherman. So it's a circular conversation involving coincidence, or what's the other one? Jung's great idea, synchronicity, which I'm a big fan of. And there it was. So I gave it a try. And I thought, this is one of the worst Airfix kits ever. Let's hope they've bucked things up, and believe me, they have. I'm going to have to put my camera down for this. And it looks really good. I think the Firefly is the best version of the Sherman, so I'm happy to give that a go, because it's got a really nice big gun. Why couldn't the British do that with other tanks? Then I found this, and I thought, wow, that's a development, shall we say. And there's plenty of other bits and pieces that look really rather good. So we really have moved on from the old days. And then the cat is back. The instructions are fascinating, because they've added glue here marks, which you kind of don't need, but then again, it's very handy. It helps locate things, because sometimes the little line or arrow just points into oblivion. You don't know where you go with things. So I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to be snobby about this because I'm a grown-up. I'm going to welcome it, because you just can't beat a good instructions leaflet. Although the white outer line around the black does make things a little bit big here and there. I'll try and, who do I like? There's a company that does absolutely fantastic instructions. I can't think who they are. Instructions are now going to become a topic, aren't they? So anyway, here's this, here's that, and so I thought, yeah, let's not muck about with this one. I looked on the back, and there's that kind of khaki, browny green colour. And I looked at the colours, and I thought, yeah, and I actually sent off to get 159 because I haven't got it, and I want to get it right. And in my enthusiasm, I hadn't done this. I've got the blooming paint already. Moving on. So I have undercoated in a green, more green than need be. Given that I'm going to do it that other colour. A little bit of grey around the, I was going to say undercarriage. Well, you know what I mean, wheels. Because you can't beat a bit of undercoat, particularly if you're hand painting. So I think that will do us for now. Let it dry, build it, and then hand paint over the top so you get a little bit of texture. Why grey? Because if you look under my car, any car I've ever had, in fact, it's always a nondescript grey-brown colour. It's quite... yeah. So this will be in the European theatre, and it will probably get the same, unless it's been splashing around somewhere or on beaches. So that will do as a base. There you go, that's the logic. Got to spray that green yet, because it's too green. Makes sense? Not really. Also, not exactly the most necessary thing, but really rather fun and enjoyable. They have a diagram of the relevant sprue, and they highlight the bits that need to be removed. I know one or two other companies have done that, but well done Airfix picking it up. And also, look at that. There's a little tank icon showing you which way round this part goes. These are all just jolly, aren't they? We've all been getting by without them, but it's rather nice to see somebody's thought this through. Well done. Good logical thinking. It's extraordinarily rare these days. Right, so the lower part of the hull, I suppose we could call it the chassis, is firming up. So I've done a couple of bits on the upper part of the hull. There's a few titchy things to add, and then I think we're on to the turret. Yep, so I'll inspect those and move on swiftly. Look at all that glue. Ugh. This has all gone remarkably well. While each stage is drying, for want of a better word, I'm on to the next stage. It's coming together very nicely. Probably the only... there's two drawbacks. One is the sprue. It's pretty... the actual points that connect are pretty big. And it's pretty tough plastic. So at times, even though I've been using snippers and things, there's some damage occur, and at times I'm trying to clean that up. I feel like I'm sculpting. That is the primary problem. There is one tiny little fiddly bit, that on the inside of the turret holding the gun in place. There's better ways of doing it, and it was, given that everything else was going so well, it was a stark contrast, not an actual problem. But there we go. So I'm going to let all those settle down, and I'll put the tiny fiddly bits on. And there it is. That's every piece on. I reckon that took less than an hour, and I was dawdling. There weren't any real problems, to be quite honest. I know I mentioned a couple of iffy things. The muzzle brake comes in two halves, but that's to allow you to get it through the small hole, get the barrel through the small hole there. It was a fairly uninspiring part, and that's it. It's a really good model. So now, paint it up properly and put the markings on. There we go. And here we are. Now I thought that, I know it's khaki green, but I thought that khaki green paint was a little more brown. And I did stir it up, so that can't be the problem. So yeah, it's a green tank. I really thought it was going browner. I've seen a browner khaki green at like reenactments and shows and things. Oh, another windy day. But and I've talked to people about the colours, and they said, yeah, this is right for this one, this moment in time or whatever. But anyway, this one's green. There we go. Everything has come out. No, start again. The design is fantastic. This is a great model. Can't fault it. 3 little things have occurred, and they are tiny. Look, that seam, which I didn't put any glue on, has opened up. It's springing up. And that means that this side is also springing up. So every so often there's just a slightly... press the wrong button. It just sits up. We're talking a fraction of a millimetre. That line looks quite nice. Ordinarily, if something goes wrong, I have a horrible feeling when I look at it, but that looks quite good. I know it's not meant to be there because there's a rivet line below it, but it looks alright. I think a little bit of pressure and we could get that back on. Oh! 52 has slipped sideways. I can adjust that. The real big blunder is this batch of writing. It doesn't quite fit between the lines, between the ribs. Apart from that, it's great. I'm noticing that the black that I've done, I did blacken up that a little, and I've gone back over the tyres. The black looks a bit green on the camera. It's not green in real life. Anyway, there it is. Really excellent model. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I haven't enjoyed making a model that much for a very long time, which I think says something, because in the end it is meant to be enjoyable, and it hasn't been for a bit. So there we are. Well, I suppose one drawback is the tools. There's no brown for the tools, and I assume they might be red and bronze and brass. So I got a bit of brown out because I wanted to do a tiny bit of weathering just around the back. If the tools had metal handles, they'd be murder to use. The impact would be incredible up your arms, which is why modern ones have rubber handles, rubber grips. So if they were metal, then I should have done black rubber grips, but I don't know. I assume wood. But there we are. Fantastic. Right, and finally just a quick look, see how things go over here. Hang on, I'll move the Iron Age hut. Just bear with me. It was propping things up. Hopefully things won't fall down. Right, here it is in close quarters. So yeah, not the biggest fan of the Sherman, it being a Tommy cooker and all, and anybody else who wanted to get in it. I think the Germans kind of summed it up, and this is where we see the Second World War and the future of humanity going from sort of skill and tactics and things like that to mass production, hence things like the T-34. Very often when you hear people commenting and you read books, it's as if the only people doing mass production was the Americans. Of course the Russians are mass producing everything, but it does mean this is an easy victim to big and powerful tanks, which is a great shame. It's a bit ubiquitous and it's a bit lumpy and heavy-handed. The Americans did have that thing where you could basically use any parts from one tank on another, which is a brainwave. I've forgotten what it's called. That is brilliant, but it's everywhere, it's mass production, it's throwing stuff at the enemy rather than considered use of vehicles and people and things like that. But like I say, that's how the world was turning by then, and it's not the Americans' fault. On the other hand, I mean, as I was saying at the beginning, it really did go, and there wasn't much got in its way apart from enemy shells, which is a big issue, but you know. I do feel it's similar to the Churchill, that by and large it was undergunned, particularly as the war moved on. That should have been obvious. But there we go. Whinging over. This is a great model of what is a landmark tank, if nothing else. And it is a clever upgunning, I have to say. It's funny how the British and the Americans didn't really cotton on to this kind of thing until the end of the war, when they were starting to produce things like the Centurion, and was it the Pershing that came out just at the end? Anyway, all of that is by the by. So whinging away, that doesn't mean I'm not interested in the tank and its value in the Second World War, because I got ages ago bought myself that, so we will be doing more. I'm not walking away from it. And I do like those ones that are the rounded, they have the rounded body. They look rather stylish, but yeah, I'm not trying to be a misery guts on this one. I am a misery guts where the Churchill is concerned, on the other hand. So niggles over. Brilliant model, thoroughly enjoyed it. I will go and see if I can get another one actually. I don't know why, but I just have that impulse. And they also had a Tiger, and the Airfix Tiger. The Airfix Tiger, Sherman and Panther were abysmal models. So I'm hoping